Having trouble with what spell to take with the Magic Initiate feat? Well, you're in luck, because behind today's secret door, what spell to take with the Magic Initiate feat? So, behind today's secret door, what spell to take with the Magic Initiate feat? This is Secret Door, a channel devoted to in-depth discussions about Dungeons and Dragons, and my name is Matt Morich. So before we get started, I have started a new Patreon. If you're interested in helping support the channel, please check that out. The link will be in the description and in the pinned comment. So this is going to be a rather quick video, I would say. I had initially intended to do this as a class-by-class pick, what each class should pick. But I found that so many of the spells overlapped that I just decided to condense it down to a general list of picks that I think are useful. And then from that point, you're going to be able to, I'll kind of point out what classes may specifically benefit from them. So the main reason for this video is that the Adventurers League, with the introduction of background feats, is now awarding any character that does not have a background feat the Magic Initiate feat. And for that reason, I suspect a lot of other tables are following suit. So if you're in either of those categories, then this video may help you. And otherwise, if you're not, the Magic Initiate feat is a good feat by itself, so obviously this will be of some value to you, I hope. So the Magic Initiate feat can be a little difficult to kind of wrap around how it really works. And by that I mean, in its simplest sense, it's obvious. But what if it's a spell that's on your spell list? Or let me put it this way. Look, what if you're a spellcaster and you have spell slots, and you've got the Magic Initiate feat? Can you recast the spell? And the answer to that is maybe. You can, if that spell that you chose from the Magic Initiate feat is on your spell list, your class's spell list. So if you were to have taken Shield, for example, with the Magic Initiate feat, and you're a wizard, then you could recast it. But if you're playing a paladin and you took Shield as the Magic Initiate feat, you get that one casting that the feat awards, and that's it. Now, it's important to note that if you multi-class, even though multi-classing, it gets a little bit more murky, unless you're multi-classing with the spell, the class that the spell is coming from, it still isn't going to allow you to cast that spell. So it's unlike the other feats, and I suspect in 5.5, we're going to see this be completely changed so that it is like the other feats like Fey Touch, where if you have a spell slot, you can recast it. But for now, that's how it works. And if you want to see how the ruling works on this, Sage Advice has covered this topic. I'm chiefly concerned about the spell itself in this video. I will kind of touch on cantrips that are associated with the spell list as another reason to maybe grab it, but cantrips are generally not, in my opinion, all that important. Sometimes they are, and when they are, in my opinion anyway, I will mention them. I'm not going to present these spells in any kind of order of what is best to worst or anything like that, except for the probability of one spell. So probably the most powerful spell you could pick is going to be Find Familiar. Find Familiar is an amazing spell. It also has the advantage that it doesn't require concentration, and it doesn't have a duration. If the familiar were to die or you were to dismiss it, you could always just cast it again the next day. So Find Familiar is going to be just a very, very solid pick. So then if it's such a great pick, then why make a list at all? The reason is simple, and that is that if you have a party that's already got 3 characters and they all have Find Familiar, its value begins to go down the more familiars there are. One of the biggest boons for someone with a familiar is that the familiar can do scouting and that you can see through the familiar's eyes, etc., etc. That's incredibly valuable. Once you've hit 2 or 3 of those, its value kind of goes down. Now, if you took the owl, then you have the ability to do the flyby help action, and that's always going to be great. And for that reason alone, Find Familiar will still be one of the best things you could pick. But you also may find that if half your party or more is already taking Find Familiar, you may just want to be a bit different. And so what I'm proposing are some other spells that could be very effective, but bear in mind that probably Find Familiar is the overall best bang for the buck. In addition, the wizard might not have a particular need to want to take or even find it advantageous to take Find Familiar as opposed to grabbing another spell that, even though it's only going to be used, if it's from another spell list, even though they can only use that spell once a day, that's better than not having it at all. So the wizard alone might be a reason to not take Find Familiar. And Pact of the Chain warlocks also would be in the same kind of situation. So the first spell I want to touch on is Hex. That's on the Warlock spell list, and you can choose cantrips from the Warlock's cantrip list. Hex is on my list here because it has an hour duration. It is concentration, but it's going to add to damage. And just about any class can find a use to be able to do an extra d6 of damage per attack that hits. Even with that hour duration, especially if you're in a dungeon situation, then you should be able to squeeze out 2 encounters and maybe even 3 with the Hex spell. Probably not 3, but certainly you could get 2 in with 1 casting of Hex. So it has another sense of great value in that sense. However, if you're playing a caster that's heavy on concentration spells, Hex is obviously not going to play very nicely with that. But classes like any of the fighter subclasses could find particular value in an hour's worth of Hex. The barbarian, of course, should not take Hex, probably because they wouldn't be able to concentrate on it while raging, but you could easily make the argument, and I'll make an argument for the barbarian taking a different concentration spell, that you only get so many rages in a day, and the barbarian is going to face certain times where it's just going to be up against not having a rage available to it. It's very likely that that's going to happen. You only start with 2. So if you're only doing 2 encounters a day, then you're fine. But beyond that, the barbarian's probably going to be stuck in an encounter without a rage available. Hex could be an answer for that. I think I have a slightly better answer for the barbarian for increasing their damage in another concentration spell. Another great pick could be Shield. Now, if you are a wizard or a sorcerer, Shield is on your list. So this would give you a free casting of Shield. Shield is going to be always useful. You'll use it throughout your entire career. So any class could make particular use of getting a reaction-based +5 to their AC. That's very, very strong. But wizards and sorcerers in particular, I think, might put their particular eye on Shield. For a wizard, this might be a very strong secondary pick, considering that Find Familiar is not terribly important to them. So another interesting pick would be Armor of Agathis. Now, Armor of Agathis is on the Warlock spell list. A first level casting of Armor of Agathis is not where the spell truly shines. It really truly shines when it's upcast. It doesn't require concentration and it lasts an hour. And you get 5 temporary hit points. And as long as you have any portion of those temporary hit points remaining and you get hit by a melee attack, the attacker takes 5 points of damage. So if, for example, you only took 3 points and you had 2 points remaining, he would take 5 from the first attack. And then if you got attacked again by another melee attack and still had those 2 temporary hit points left, they would still take another 5. But because it's only 5 temporary hit points, the chances are that it's all going to get eaten up in one shot. But 5 temporary hit points is not so bad, and doing a little bit of damage back is not so bad. But for a barbarian, it can be particularly interesting because of rage. Now, this is not the spell I'm referring to take place of or to use in a situation where you're stuck without a rage, but it actually works reasonably well with rage because it doesn't require concentration. So when you're raging and you have Armor of Agathis on, and those you have damage resistance. So the chances of those 5 temporary hit points holding up is better. I mean, it's still not fantastic, but the chance that you might have 1 or 2 points left, you might, in which case you're going to eke out even a little bit more value out of the spell. And so that brings us to a pick that you might think is a silly choice, and that is Bless. Bless is a great spell, and it's useful kind of throughout, as long as whatever level you're playing at, you're always going to be able to use another D4 to hit and another D4 to saving throws, and especially since it affects 3 people. Its big drawback, of course, is that it is concentration. And at higher level of play, you've probably got much better things to do with a concentration slot than Bless. But if you don't have something to use a concentration slot for, if you are a fighter or a barbarian who is stuck without a rage, this is of particular note for any character using Great Weapon Master, because that D4 represent the average roll being a 2.5. That's 10, 12% on average. When you're talking about a damage pool of average damage per round, that 12% can become a rather large number. It can be 5 or even 6 points of damage per round, and that's just on that one character. There's still 2 other characters that Bless could affect. So for a barbarian, it could be a nice thing to have in your back pocket to have if you get stuck without a rage. And of course, with Bless, that gives you access to Guidance as a cantrip, which is pretty much considered to be one of the strongest, if not the strongest, cantrip choice you can have. And a barbarian could, even though that is concentration as well, the Guidance cantrip is of particular value to a barbarian in a dungeon encounter, because that you could give Guidance and that could count right before you're about to open the door. It affects ability checks, and initiative is an ability check. So all you need it is as soon as that door opens, if you need it and initiative is immediately rolled, then you don't have to worry about concentration anymore. Bards also would, I think, just thematically have particular value to get Bless. And of course, that also grants them Guidance. Now, for just one spell that is a chance to see if you could take an enemy out. It's just a one-shot spell. Tasha's Hideous Laughter is a first-level spell, and it can do just that. So you generally think of Magic Initiate and you want it to have strong value, but because Tasha's could take out an opponent, that has great value. So Tasha's is going to be something that almost anybody could consider, and it would be worthwhile to have. And Tasha's effectiveness lasts throughout pretty much your entire career. So another pick, and I'm just going to cover both of these in the same pick, could be Cure Wounds or Healing Word. You never are going to be sorry for having a little bit of healing on hand, but I have a slightly better choice for that with the next pick. But still, Cure Wounds, or because of its use in battle, Cure Wounds or Healing Word does have real value. And so finally, on this list is a spell that I think would be of great use to just about any character. I think it's of the second best value next to, of course, Find Familiar, and that would be Good Berry. Good Berry, each berry provides 1 hit point of healing and could sustain a creature with nourishment for the day. So it has even value in survival situations. But of course, because the berries last 24 hours, if you cast it before you were to take a long rest, you have those good berries available to you the next day. And then on that next day, if you needed to cast it again, then of course, over the course of that day, you could get up to 20 good berries worth of value. So 20 hit points worth of healing on a good day, or 10 points normally, can be of great value. Now, the rule is written with Good Berry. It won't work to use Good Berry to revive an ally, because the ally has to spend an action to eat the good berry. But DMs may rule very differently. I wouldn't count on this as a method to revive anyone, but as a way for you to be able to recover hit points throughout the day, and take some pressure off healers. It's just immensely valuable. And of course, in a smaller sense, it's valuable for survival kind of scenarios. So this list is by no means the end-all be-all list. It's simply spells that I think have the most value to consider taking. So other cantrips of note would be Minor Illusion, Prestidigitation, or its other equivalents. Those are fun and can be useful. Obviously, Mage Hand is great. So those are other cantrips of particular note. All right, well, that's all I've got. If you enjoyed the video, please like, please share, please subscribe. And if you're stuck and you don't know where to go, you can always search for a secret door. Until next time, I cast bless on all of you.